Just didn't fall out the back of the truck somewhere. They've spent a lot of time in government service. Pretty interesting. Let's go to the KUAM News Zoom room where we have standing by, playing nice with each other. And we have, what is it, Jay? We have Benelis and virtual Benelis what? Benelis Aga, Benelis Dogu, what kind of?
We've also used red and blue food coloring in the Benelis Dogu just to, cater to the political parties.
Right. So, of course, red for the Republicans, blue for the Democrats. So, guys, if you want to have a Republican donut, Tony, I think they're made with a little more bougie ingredients. Feel free. All right. Just wanted to break the ice a little bit. So we have in the KUAM News Zoom room, he's a former Assistant Secretary of DOI, Tony Babauta, and, of course, former two-term Republican former Governor Eddie Calvo. Good morning, gentlemen.
Buenas. Half a day.
And we'll go ahead and start with you, Governor Calvo. Thanks for coming on this morning. Sent you the message yesterday. Come on, shake the tree. Make a election morning push. Obviously, from a Republican slant. So we'll go ahead and give you the floor. Gov, your thoughts on this campaign season. It's been very interesting with COVID and the pandemic and all the protocols and restrictions in place. So definitely.
And the cancellation of the primary.
And the cancellation of the primary. One. Like we've said, it's created some interesting things like the congressional race. So go ahead, Gov, your thoughts on just campaigning and politics during a pandemic.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Chris and Sabrina, for giving me this opportunity. Hello, Tony. The last time I saw Tony, we were both shopping at Payless. So thank you for shopping at Payless supermarkets, Tony. Hey, by the way, do you got the log cabin syrup to go with the doggo?
Yeah, of course. We have that and Jemima.
What makes this election very interesting is that the conventional way of campaigning, and especially in Guam, we're a society and a community that likes to hug, likes to amen, likes to kiss at the side of a cheek, and it's human contact. It's going out there and door to door. It's the pocket meetings. It's the mass meetings. That isn't happening. You can't in a pandemic such as this. So, what happened? This election is very interesting because the conventional way of doing things is not being done anymore. And you guys even know it in the media because of the lack of fundraising, because of this tough economy. There hasn't been too many commercials on TV or laying out their platforms on the print ad or on the radio, just because candidates have less access to funding. But what they do have is things like this now, is the social media. And I think what's going to happen with this election is, how much social media and how much our candidates make use of it, our experts in it, will go a long way. It's unfortunate because if you look at the past 2 years, you've had a Democratic supermajority, a Democratic administration. So you didn't see the headbutting that you would typically see between two different branches of government. So you don't see a lot of things happening in the headlines because one senator is calling out a governor or a director on on some issue. So it's going to be interesting. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that come this election, obviously, I would like to see President Trump and a Republican Congress, and I'd love to see a Republican supermajority and a Republican congressman. But again, it's just a different set of circumstances this time around. So we'll see what happens.
Tony, let's take it over to you. Tony Babauta, same question. Go ahead, Tony. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Sabrina, Prima. Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Jason. Good morning to the people of Guam as we head out to the polls. And I'm sure that former Governor Calvo, myself, obviously the Zoom team is encouraging everyone to go out on election day, exercise your right to vote. I can't agree more with Governor Calvo and some of his assessment with how the campaigns have got along and how candidates have been challenged during this election season to raise money, get your message out, make a determination of where you're going to put your resources. Are you going to do more on social media? Are you going to do more on traditional media? And then just raising money in general, I think has been very difficult. I think the Democrats and the Democratic candidates and the party itself has done an amazing job trying to get our message out, introduce voters to the candidates that we have running on our slate, both at the senatorial level, the mayoral level, and also at the delegate level. Social media has been a factor in this election, certainly, in the past election, certainly, and in some previous elections, kind of ramping up.
Right.
I think the difficult part for candidates is to try to figure out how you hit those demographics within the construct of the election. 50 and above is more difficult to capture during social media. Obviously, you have 50 and below, more apt to social media influences. But then, even in this pandemic, how do you get that vote out? How do you get the voter turnout? How do you get people motivated? And that's been a real challenge, I think, for both parties. I think they've done their best to try to get their messages out. I think Democrats have done an amazing job with the Facebook forums that they hosted over the course of probably two and a half weeks to introduce all of our candidates. We're very hopeful to maintain the majority, if not increase our number. And we're very hopeful for a Democratic delegate to Congress. Right. And as much of a sweep as we can in the mayoral races. We're very excited about today. The party's been ramping up for weeks. The energy is high, and we're hopeful for a successful day at the end of the day.
Let's stump a little bit here. Governor Calvo, what did you think of the Republican slate of candidates? It looks, just outside looking in, you've got some former senators, obviously with experience. Some of them, worked in your administration. And then you've got everyone else, a bunch of newcomers, maybe lacking in experience, but definitely making up for that. And I think their passion and concern about issues. I mean, we had them all on here. And, there are a lot of people who've never served in a political office in their lives. But in listening to their responses to a lot of the questions, it was what was kind of going on with the Democratic supermajority, Democratic administration that kind of prompted them to run. So if you could just run through the slate, and then on the congressional side, just your thoughts on that, Gov. Go ahead.
Yeah. Again, what I think we have is a very good blend of some of our seasoned veterans. Folks that are former senators that are coming back, especially in a critical time like this, where public debate is so important, focusing on policies, focusing on the effectiveness of governance in regards to not only the pandemic, but in providing service to the people of Guam. So, you got the seasoned veterans, and I go back to got folks like Tony Ada, Frank Blas, Joanne Brown, Chris Duenas. These folks have been there as senators. Then you got some of these folks that have experience. J.I. Cruz. J.I. Cruz is that fella ran Mandunya Drug Task Force. Unfortunately, Governor Leon Guerrero killed it, and now we had record crime last year. I think everybody's forgetting how bad criminal activity was. But getting J.I. Cruz in there, Vince Borja, what an intelligent young man. He got a lot of heat at University of Guam because he was running as a Republican. And then you have folks like this Armenta, very small businesswoman, and yet also very pro-life. She's a woman that's involved with the Catholic Church, especially with efforts made to bring Planned Parenthood and abortion centers into Guam. This woman is more focused on life. Then we got this Sayao. Man, I've having a chance to meet her. I've met her once or twice, but she seems tough. She seems like a tough young lady. No experience in politics like some of those other ones, but just wants to get in there and shake things up, particularly on the effectiveness of governance. And then some of these other ones, again, Ekelani, and excuse me if I forget some there's a few other ones that are just no experience in politics. They just want to get in. And then, of course, we've got the current senators, Senator Teitigui, Senator Moylan, and we have Senator Torres. I wish, I would love to see Will as a senator, but I'd love to see him as a congressman as well. I think also with Louise Muñoz, I think she was doing a great job. But like I said, unfortunately, she decided to step down. But I just think we have a good combination of seasoned talent. And then at the same time, we've got some folks that really want to shake things up and want to focus on service to the people. So I'm excited.
Tony, just same question with you. If you could, a little bit more about the Democratic Party slate. Obviously, we've got the incumbents running. There's been a lot of flack thrown at those incumbents here during this campaign season, most of it coming from the Republican side. And then you've got, a bunch of newcomers as well. You got a couple of candidates with law enforcement experience in John Ananich, Frank Leon Guerrero. Just so if you could, Tony, the Democrat legislative slate on election day. A little more from Tony Babauta here on the link. Good morning.
Yeah, Democrats are very excited about our slate of potential members for the Guam legislature. We obviously have the majority of incumbents that are running. I think we only lost one incumbent, which was Senator Regine Bisco-Lee. But on our bench, we have a very strong bench. As you mentioned, experience in law enforcement in the form of Frank Leon Guerrero, Fred Berdallo, former chief of police, and also John Ananich. We have strong people from the community, Franklin Meno and Dave Duenas, and then, one of the staffers of a sitting senator, Chris Carrillo. At the beginning of every election season, I try to get to know as much as possible the candidates, because putting yourself out there for public service is a difficult decision to make personally and on behalf of your family. But clearly, the effort to continue to serve as our incumbents, like Therese Terlahi, Senators Rigel, Perez, San Augustine, Shelton Terlahi Barnes, and Nelson, and also Kelly Marsh Taitano. I mean, their willingness to continue putting themselves out there to serve the people of Guam, to pass some policies that we think are going to move Guam forward, along with the newcomers, who some have a little bit more experience in public service and others don't. But the mere gesture of putting yourself out there and doing what you can for your community, I think is admirable for all candidates, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. I congratulate all of them, all of the newcomers for doing that and putting yourselves out there. Having said that, I think the Democrats have a much stronger slate of candidates. I think we have much more experience. I appreciate some of the newcomers on the Republican side. They have many friends who are Republicans, and glad to see some of them have put their hat back in the ring to provide the kind of diversity and debate that is needed in any sort of deliberative body that is supposed to be a check and a balance and an independent branch of government. But we feel strongly that we have a strong slate of candidates for this election, and that will maintain the majority.
Let's just we'll keep it with you, Tony. Will bring Governor up too. Let's talk about this congressional race. This is, I think, definitely the race to watch. And I was talking to someone last night, and they're like, if anybody, because we're anticipating, are people going to sue? I mean, I'm still wondering if people are going to sue about the primary election, but
or are we going to see a runoff election?
Or are we going to see a runoff election? But I think it's I kind of feel for Will Castro. I mean, we've had him on a couple times with former Congressman Robert Underwood. Like you guys had both said, run a real grassroots campaign. But if there's anybody who should sue, I think Will. I mean, having to go up against two Democrats, I mean, that's just nuts. But let's just focus on this congressional race. Tony, and we'll start with you. What did you make of the campaigning and the tactics, the strategy from all the candidates here in this very hot congressional race between the Republican, of course, Senator Will Castro, the incumbent, Congressman Michael San Nicolas, and the Democratic challenger, former Congressman Robert Underwood? Tony?
Yeah. So, to just be clear in everything, right? I used to work for Robert Underwood, and he's my favored candidate for this delegate race. I will say that Will Castro is a very close friend of mine. Ever since Will was a Democrat, he's been a good friend of mine. As a Republican, he still remains a good friend. I messaged Will a couple of weeks ago, and I just told him that I was very impressed with the type of campaign he was running. I think it was reflective of the type of person he is. He's professional. He is grassroots. And I thought he had a very strong message that was very difficult to resonate just in a three-way race. Mr. St. Nicholas, has he's done a good job promoting what the Congress has passed to benefit Guam. In terms of the campaign, I think it was probably difficult for him to have the type of campaign maybe that he's had in the past, for the mere fact that he wasn't here for the majority of the time. I think the last time he was here before he just arrived on Guam a few weeks ago was back in February. And I think Robert Underwood has been able to tap into supporters who want to help him get his message out. I think he's probably been one of the most active candidates in terms of social media and buying ads. And I think he's had a very strong message as wanting to continue his life in public service and return to the Congress after a decades-long record of success for Guam. And so I think the Democrats will retain that seat. In terms of the three-way race, I think it's a little bit. It'll be interesting. I don't know what legal questions will be brought out about it. Back in 2004, the Congress passed legislation for American Samoa that in lieu of a primary, that in the general election, the victor would be elected by a plurality of votes instead of a majority of votes. It didn't extend expressly to Guam. So I don't know if anyone has looked into that or if that's something to be looked into, but it's very difficult to have the runoff after the general election. The Guam Election Commission has to go out. You have to make sure that you're sending ballots out to military servicemen and women, and that you can get those ballots back. It'll be, let's get past today, and then we'll figure out what the next step is in that particular race.
Governor?
Yeah, I got to tell you, my first experience with Will Castro coming, and again, he came into, for whatever reasons, when I was running for office, there's something about what my message was all about that Will believed in what the Calvo Tenorial team was all about in terms of a new direction, and he came in. And I've been just impressed with whatever task or responsibility has been given to him, whether it was Bureau of Statistics and Plans, and what he did in terms of getting it more organized, whether it was in setting up an information systems for land management. And then, of course, I thought one of the crown jewels was what he did with our master plan for the hospital. As a matter of fact, you have a guy like Will, who really, if this current administration, the legislature, could have followed the master plan that was put together by administration way back on the hospital, you wouldn't see some of the major issues in regards to what is happening with this overburdened hospital. I do think the other two candidates are flawed. No offense, but Mike St. Nicholas, I feel for the guy. He was at the hospital just recently, but in 2014, when we wanted to bail out the hospital, he voted against that measure. He voted against every measure to try to help the hospital. He was more interested in politics than in getting our hospital in the right shape. And of course, the other person to vote against that measure in 2014 that would give $45 million to the hospital was Narissa Underwood. Now, it's not Bob, but I would have been hopeful that someone like Bob would have whispered in her ear on what was most important, which was a hospital. There's another flaw about Bob. Folks, like I said, I see Will, who tries to put things together, tries to work with both parties. Bob's pretty partisan. And what he did at University of Guam, guys, you may be offended by this, Tony, and the Democratic Party, but that sexual predator was being protected by Bob Underwood. And he went after Ron McNitch for being a whistleblower. Of course, Ron can't talk about it because he was he has a settlement agreement. And then when I saw what they were doing to Ron McNitch, and I went after the university leadership, then Bob Underwood sends Anita Enriquez after me. And I'm thinking, wow, the top leadership of University of Guam is going after a whistleblower. And of course, the rest is history. The fella got convicted. Like I said, I had some issues with the leadership of University of Guam. I like Bob Underwood as a person, but that one time and what he did at the University of Guam told me another story about his integrity. I believe Will Castro is a man we need. He's refreshing. He's been on both sides of both parties. And again, I just don't believe that he has the flaws that I see in both Bob Underwood and Mike Nicholas.
All right, we're gonna put you guys on together, and
I was gonna say, did Tony want to?
Or you want to respond to that? Any of it, Tony?
Yeah. I think I would like to respond to it. I don't want to get into. I know it's election day, Governor, and we're both out promoting our candidates. I think to try to do a character assassination at 8:30 in the morning on election day to try to bolster the positives of your candidates is just kind of part and parcel of kind of what the Republicans have done this entire campaign season, which is just divisive. Democrats have a Democrats message of unity, strong records of achievement. You'll find that in Robert Underwood over decades worth of work in the Congress. Guam Excess Lands Returns Act. He passed the Guam World War Root Claims Commission. He's super active on the Armed Services Committee, and then also his time at the university, where he spent 10 years rebuilding that university, brought it more money, brought it more donors, gave it more awareness outside of Guam, and made partnerships both in the United States and in Asia. Started, sustained, and grew the Center for Island Sustainability, which is something that has continued on year after year and is an important part of our community in terms of getting young people interested in Guam's growth and how to sustain something that's balanced and achievable and good for Guam. So I respect views, of course, but I think by and large, the stronger candidates and the slate is on the Democratic Party side. And I think if you want a return, if you want to put someone in Congress who has experience, can work bipartisanly in Congress, and I can attest to that after working for a couple years with Robert Underwood and then 11 years as a committee staffer, where he was still one of my members. I know how Robert Underwood works. I know how he works across the aisles. I know how he intelligently expresses Guam's needs and is a voice for Guam in the Congress. And I hope that for him to return to a House majority as well as a Senate majority.
Thank you. I wanted to go back to the senatorial race and just kind of get your thoughts on how the mindset that you think people are going to be heading into the polls with, and how you think they're going to be voting, or how you think they should be voting. You think they're going to be voting on trust, on pocketbook issues, like one of our analysts had said the other day. Are they going to be voting on who they think, how they're going to handle the COVID response? So what are your thoughts, gentlemen? We'll start with you, Governor Calvo.
Yeah, I think if you just again, no, I understand, Tony. I'm just laying out facts. I think, Chris, you could go back to the news back a few years ago, and whatever I'm saying is there's a fact to it. No, but going forward, I think the people of Guam have got to take a look at the past 2 years of a party power of control on this island. There's only been one party in control of a supermajority, and of the executive branch. Even prior to this pandemic, one of the first things done by the administration was to eliminate the Madunya Drug Task Force. You folks remember how they pointed on crime, but 2019 was a pretty bad in terms of criminal activity. You had the Department of Corrections, where a few, not one, not two, but a few more prisoners were inadvertently released. You had an arrest of a Democratic mayor of the village of Jotnya, And in his testimony, there was implication for the deputy director of Department of Corrections in terms of, again, a sexual assault, holding a woman back while the mayor dragged her into a room. What I find so interesting with what happened even before the pandemic, you don't hear oversight hearings. I mean, they went after Eric Palacios, my customs guy, for an anonymous email. Yet here you have things, arrests, not to mention a customs and quarantine director who's arrested for. Now, I don't remember Talina Nelson or Peter Terlahi going on an oversight hearing to look into some of these issues of crime and corruption within some of our public safety agencies. Then you go to the pandemic. And, again, a lot of that stuff from 2019 is forgotten, but the pandemic, Chris, you remember the show? I was here several months ago. At the same time, Korea, I think this was February, where Korea and Japan were starting to see that big uptick in positives. What does GVB do? They send out a commercial to Japan and Korea saying, hey, we're COVID-free. Even though we knew that those are our two biggest markets and they're having this mass infection rate. It appears to me, and God bless you, Tony, but starting with that, it's been a reaction after reaction, after reaction. The only thing I've ever seen is turnover in leadership, both chief of staff, public health, and homeland security. And where has the legislature been? Dead silent. You have a few voices from the Republicans, but part of being a government that is effective is checks and balance. And I think for the Republicans and for the people of Guam, you got to look at these past 2 years and you look at what has been done both pre-pandemic and the performance of both the elected leadership in our legislature and executive branch and during this pandemic. And you see that there's a lot to be wanting. Thank goodness for President Trump because of the action that occurred because of all the federal support that has come in. And I go back to the $1.6 billion in differing aid. Heck, they even had the military give us a field hospital here. We've had some professionals coming in from the military and the federal government to help our health service workers. We've had payroll assistance for businesses. We have had for the, I don't know, do we have 40,000 unemployed now? But we had all these unemployed that were getting assistance from the federal government for subsidizing them. So while they're currently not working, we've had 50, I think we have, I don't know, 60, 50, 60, 70 ventilators that came in, plus a whole bunch of other equipment. And yet here we are in November, and it seems to be every week a constant change. Guam is in a big upsurge, and our economy is not even close to opening up. And what I hear is dead silence from the Democratic supermajority. I don't know, folks. I think you just got to look at the record over the past 2 years, and there's got to be change. And the change is going to only happen when you have a Republican supermajority that can check and balance the current executive branch operations.
Tony?
Thanks, Tony. So, what do you think? We need the checks and balance, or we need people working together?
Well, I think you need a balance of everything, right? I mean, the Democrats have been in control of the legislature for the past 2 decades. This is the first time we've had a Democratic administration after 16 years of former Governor Camacho and, of course, former Governor Calvo. The administration inherited a government that needed a little bit more work. We campaigned, you and Josh during their campaign, pointed out the number of officers by law that we were supposed to have, 400 plus officers but under previous administrations it had dwindled down to about 120 officers. I hear Governor Calvo and Republicans of the like talk about a dismantling of the Mandania Drug Task Force. I think it was probably taken apart in name, but the effort and the effort by law enforcement and the relationships were strengthened with federal law enforcement to be able to pursue people who are bringing in drugs, different sorts of crime. I think if you go back to the past year and a half, you'll see that there's been an uptick, an increase in the number of interceptions of drugs over at the post office. I know that I was with both Governor Leon Guerrero and also Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio on 2 different occasions in Washington, D.C., where we've completely engaged the U.S. Postal Service and asked them to increase their presence and their investigative wherewithal to Guam. And I think you've seen the result of that. The Democratic administration, even in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, has brought down the debt that Gov Guam has. A Democratic majority in the legislature has raised the minimum wage. They've helped small businesses by giving some relief under the Dave Santos Act. Kelly Marsh Taitano went out and to try and to implement early voting to keep our community safe. I think, and also they passed war claims, right? They passed war claims even before the federal government got to it. There's a lot that the Democratic majority has done and a lot that this Democratic administration has done. A lot of it is blinded by everything that we're having to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Governor Calvo says that it's been reactive, and in large regard it has been, because no one has ever come across this sort of thing. Governor Calvo never had to deal with a pandemic or a large typhoon for that matter. I think the large typhoon that a governor had to deal with and bring us out of the doldrums and back into some prosperity was Governor Carl Gutierrez during his time. A couple of typhoons, crash of an airplane, and now we have Governor Gutierrez leading the Guam Visitors Bureau to hopefully bring our visitor industry back in 2021. There's no doubt that it has been very troubling. It's been a very troubling time. It's been a very tough past 8 or 9 months. I think, though, when you come right down to it and you get to kitchen tables, I think people are willing to make the sacrifice to try and keep their loved ones alive and safe and this community safe. And I would not want to have any governor have to make the kind of decisions that Governor Leon Guerrero has had to make. They're very difficult decisions, but I think she's making decisions that are in the best interest of keeping our community safe and keeping people alive. And I think that's the most important thing.
I wanted to end on the presidential race, but we've really not a lot of time. So in a minute, if you could, just your thoughts on this presidential race as we head into the state Super Tuesday tomorrow here on Guam. Governor?
Yeah, the Lord Jesus liked to tell these little parables, these little stories to get his message across. And recently I read one of those parables he gave, and he gave it to a bunch of scribes and Pharisees, was this story about this man, this father that owned a field, and this field, it was time for harvest. So he asked the first son, and he says, "Son, can you go out there and harvest the plants?" And the son says, "Yep, I'll do it, Pop." And guess what? He never did it. He said it, but didn't do it. The second son, he was critical. He was, "No, Dad, no." He was bitching. He was saying, "I'm not going to do it." But guess what? He did it. And the good Lord Jesus says, "Okay, who is the righteous son?" And I kind of put that for all these people that don't like what Donald Trump says on Twitter. And he may be rough. I've had New Yorker friends, by the way, and that's how they kind of are. But when you look at what has been done, and Tony, I had 6 years of Barack Obama and Joe Biden all talk. And then I had 2 years with Trump. And whether it was on the Medicare rebasing, whether it's Medicaid matching, whether it's finally a settlement for the Chamorro Land Trust, whether it's even now easing on H2s. And of course, it made it rough for me, raising taxes, but lowering income taxes. You saw the Trump administration move forward in doing actual concrete things that would help the people of Guam. And then, of course, you got the $1.6 billion that was pumped in for this pandemic. The last year of Obama, the big threat that U.S. Department of Education was going after our local Department of Education was said, hey, we may withhold funds unless you build transgender bathrooms. When I met with the EPA, and I can't remember her name, the lady, Tony, but I told her, hey, these edicts that you have against Guam for Clean Water and Clean Air Act cost $10,000 per every man, woman, and child. And she had basically shrugged and like, well, that's too bad. So you got one guy that maybe doesn't talk politically correct, but I can tell you, and I tell you the people of Guam, when it comes to things getting done for our island of Guam, and you look at Donald Trump and his record, and then you compare it with, again, the 8 years of the Obama administration, much more has happened in the past 4 years under President Trump than President Obama. So, you know, I can't tell you folks that, by the way, if a Biden wins, especially when he said he's going to repeal the Hyde Act with Pelosi and the Democrats, you know, the main priority for this administration in public health, and they said it early on, is to build a Planned Parenthood here for an abortion center. Well, with the repeal of the Hyde Amendment, with the Democrats and Biden all on board, then guess what? Not one taxpayer dollar from the people of Guam will be needed to build a Planned Parenthood abortion center in Guam. It'll come thank you to President Biden and a Democratic Congress. Their whole focus has been, again, I go back to what was the focus? It was putting these edicts from Washington, D.C. to tell us what they think is correct. You know, I've seen it happen. I've seen what the Obama administration did to the hospital owned by Catholic nuns because they would not offer abortion services and contraceptive services as the mandate from the Obama administration. They sued them. You have, again, adoption agencies that you know, and they're Christian. Or they're
Thanks,
Catholic.
Gov. Sorry, Gov. We got to go over to Tony
Anyway,
to give him a chance to
There's been an
respond.
attack on religion, and it's been coming from the Democrats. So I'm praying to the good Lord and the voters of the United States that they see the big, distinct, stark differences between both parties, and they are big. That they will vote Republican.
Thank you, Gov. Tony, last words with you. Tony Babauta, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I just don't think that this is a time to be divisive. We've had 4 years of divisive talking points and Twitters, tweets, and so on and so forth from President Trump. It's something that continues to this very day. I think there's an element within our community also that wants to be a bit more divisive and put aside the work that's going to be needed to provide unity for our community, to keep our elders and everyone else safe, as well as bring back the economy. I think under Democratic leadership, that's going to happen as soon as we can get past this pandemic and ensure that our people are safe. Obviously, I'm a Biden supporter. I served in the Obama-Biden administration as well. I will say that during my time as chief of staff for Governor Leon Guerrero, we did have a very good working relationship with White House Intergovernmental Affairs. But I think by and large, the President Trump has let down the country in terms of being aware of the pandemic and not doing as much that is needed. And then even after contracting the virus himself, continuing on kind of a reckless behavior of not disregarding masks and disregarding social gatherings and setting up super spreader events. I'm hopeful for a Democratic administration that's going to take this pandemic a bit more seriously across the nation, so that everyone can recover and keep Americans safe and bring back the American economy.
Thank you, Tony. Gov, thank you so much. Tony,
Take care.
Been good to see you guys.
Where we are right now in Guam is a result of Democratic leadership. So whatever issues Tony's going to blame President Trump, we've been given all the resources. Governor Leon Guerrero and the Democratic legislature has led this island through this pandemic. Where we are at this point has directly everything to do with the leadership of Governor Leon Guerrero and the Democratic supermajority. So voters, take that into consideration.
I think the fact that hold on, I think the fact that that we've only gotten to the number of deaths that we have has been a direct result of Governor Leon Guerrero's strong decisions to try to keep this community safe. It is a tough time, Governor Calvo. This is a tough time. There's no doubt. But I think the majority of people understand the type of decisions that need to be made to keep this community safe. And we'll do what we can to bring back the economy in 2021. I'm glad that you talk about the 1.6 billion that was given to Guam because it was passed under House leadership, House Democratic leadership. So I'm glad that you recognize that as well.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Tony, I think you were chief of staff. In March, you folks said that there's about in 5 months there's going to be about 3,000 fatalities while you shut the island down. It's terrible that we have over 80, but in the intervening period, when you predicted yourself, your administration, the Democrats, predicted 3,000 deaths in 5 months. You said you were going to fix the hospital. You're going to get the necessary ventilators. You're going to get the necessary equipment. You're going to get the necessary testing. And by the way, the feds gave everything. So I ask you this: if you had predicted in March, and thank God we didn't hit 3,000. So why are we now where we are at right now, where we have a hospital, where they have beds? I tell you, Tony, take a look at the skilled nursing facility. For months, you said that thing was going to be fixed. It didn't. You had to wait for the I guess the air conditions were busted. You can't use the military for whatever reason, the military tents. You have a hospital now. And again, I can go back when I was governor, when the Democrats fought getting the hospital fixed up. But if you folks knew in March that there was 3,000 folks that were going to die in 5 months, why are we so ill-prepared and always reacting till this day? So again, people of Guam, you can see the results of the action of the Democratic leadership of this island. Vote Republican.
We didn't get the number of anticipated infections because of decisions made by a Democratic governor in the throes of this pandemic. We did everything that we can to prepare Guam, and we managed to withhold the community spread until August. During those times, the things that you talk about, getting ventilators, increasing hospital beds, getting a field hospital, yes, provided by the federal government as a resource, but done so because a Democratic governor was at the forefront and beating down the doors every day of FEMA, Homeland Security, the White House, and DOD to ensure that we had those resources available. Everything that Governor Leon Guerrero has done has been done in the best interest of trying to keep this community safe. Even the collaboration that we did with the Teddy Roosevelt to keep our military servicemen and women safe by bringing them off the ship and into Tumon to keep our military presence strong in the Pacific.
While the administration had a turnover in chief of staff, God bless you, Tony, Homeland Security and public health, the legislature kept quiet. And now we are exploding clusters. I feel sorry for the folks in Gilboa and Gil Breeze. But the issue on testing, on source tracing, and by the way, a lot of these fatalities are either people that are coming in already corpses and being tested positive, or they're coming in real sick. And this is where public health, and under the leadership of the governor, and hopefully working with the Democratic majority, could work towards focusing on these at-risk groups. And it's not only the sickly, but it's of those that are of the low, let's say, of very communities that have very limited infrastructure with these extended families. And I go back to this. It's November. It's November. Tony, you weren't there to stick around. Linda DeNorsi, you're a great guy. Linda's not there. Tim Uggan. But all I've seen is this turnover. So, with all this turnover, it didn't help the situation. Mm-hmm. And of course, when the Democratic supermajority saw all this turnover in your administration, where were they to help? I just saw dead silence. While things seem to change on a daily and a weekly basis.
All right.
Okay, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
Take care.
input. We could probably have you back on tonight because it's going to take a while for the results to come in. So please, you're invited. If you want to go head to head again tonight, that would be great.
We could bill it,
All right.
you know.
Take care.
Thank you,
Round
Gov.
3.
Tony, appreciate it.
Take care.
You guys.
Thanks, guys.
You,
Stay
Tony.
safe.
Democrats.
That's okay, guys. There's virtual Benelis Aga in the KUAM News Zoom room. If you guys want to grab some on your way out, okay. Remember, red for Republican, blue for Democrat. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks.
Okay, there you go. That's that.